A young virgin saves a stranger on the brink of death. She didn't know. He was a millionaire, the target of an attack. When he opens his eyes, he swears to discover who saved him and why. But what comes next is a secret that could change everything. If this story interests you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. We'll continue. The gray sky of New York City released a fine, persistent rain on that autumn morning. Sarah adjusted the lid of her coffee thermos carefully while watching her little Lily, just 6 years old, finish breakfast at the kitchen table. The clock showed 5:30 a.m., and the day was already bustling in the small apartment of the housing complex. "Mommy, can I take my drawing book today to Mrs. Dorothy's house?" asked Lily, her large brown eyes shining with anticipation. Sarah smiled, storing more sugar packets in her coffee cart. "Of course, my love. But remember to do the homework your teacher assigned first," she replied, adjusting her daughter's school uniform. "Mrs. Dorothy is already waiting for us." Sarah's apartment, though small, overflowed with love and creativity. The living room. Walls were decorated with Lily's colorful drawings, each telling a different story of the world, seen through the innocent eyes of the child. In the bedroom they shared, a small shelf housed children's books, always growing thanks to donations from Sarah's loyal customers. They descended the building's stairs carefully, Sarah balancing the heavy coffee cart while holding Lily's hand. The journey to Mrs. Dorothy's apartment was short, just 2 floors up, but always filled with conversation and laughter between mother and daughter. Mrs. Dorothy, a silver-haired lady with a welcoming smile, was already waiting at the door. "Good morning, my dears. Come in, Lily, the coffee is warm and I just made cinnamon cookies." Sarah hugged her daughter tightly before leaving. "Behave yourself, my love. Mommy will be back as soon as work is done." Lily waved excitedly, already running into Mrs. Dorothy's cozy apartment. The path to the business district was long, but Sarah was accustomed to it. Her coffee cart, a faithful companion for 3 years, creaked softly as she crossed the still deserted streets of the neighborhood. Each corner held a story. Each regular customer was like a small chapter in her daily life. Arriving at her usual spot, in front of the imposing Crystal Building, Sarah began her meticulous organization routine. Disposable cups were arranged in precise rows, sugar and sweetener packets separated into small containers, and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee began to perfume the surrounding air. The first executives started arriving, grumpy and hurried, barely noticing the presence of the vendor who smiled kindly at each one. Sarah knew their preferences. Mr. Robert, extra strong coffee with 2 sugars. Mrs. Marcia, coffee with milk, no sugar. Mr. Paul, plain espresso. That's when she saw him for the first time. Tall, elegant, wearing an impeccably cut suit, Michael Bennett was known as the Coffee Baron, one of the country's leading businessmen in the specialty coffee bean import sector. His steps were firm, his gaze focused and distant, as if he carried the weight of the world on his shoulders. Sarah observed when he stopped abruptly on the sidewalk, a few yards from her cart. Something seemed wrong. His right hand clutched his chest tightly, his face contorted in an expression of intense pain. In a matter of seconds, he staggered, his knees giving way under his own weight. Without hesitation, Sarah abandoned her cart and ran toward him. As the crowd formed, curious but inert, she acted with the precision she had learned in the first aid course offered by the neighborhood community center. "Someone call an ambulance," she shouted, while checking the businessman's vital signs. Time seemed to have frozen as Sarah kept Michael conscious, talking to him softly while waiting for the ambulance. Their eyes met briefly, and she saw something beyond the powerful businessman. She saw a vulnerable, frightened human man. "Stay with me," she murmured, holding his hand firmly. "Help is coming." Michael tried to speak, but she gently stopped. Him. "Don't strain yourself, just breathe slowly." The sound of the siren cut through the air a few minutes later, and the paramedics quickly took over. Sarah stepped back, relieved to see that he was receiving proper care. It was only when the ambulance departed that she realized her coffee cart was gone. Her heart raced when she spotted, a few yards away, 2 city inspectors carrying her means of livelihood. She ran to them, trying to explain the emergency situation that had forced her to leave her spot temporarily. "Ms. Sarah Collins," said one of the inspectors, consulting his clipboard with an impassive expression, "abandonment of post is a serious violation. Your license is suspended until further notice." "But I was saving a life," protested Sarah, feeling tears beginning to form. "Please, that cart is all I have to support my daughter." "The rules are clear," replied the other inspector, handing her a notice. "You can appeal administratively, but the process takes about 60 days. Sarah was paralyzed on the sidewalk, the paper trembling in her hands. 60 days. How would she survive 2 months without her only source of income? How would she explain to Lily that they might no longer be able to buy her school supplies or take the little Sunday outings they both looked forward to? The way back home never seemed so long. Each step was heavy, each breath painful. At the building entrance, she met Mr. George, the superintendent who always greeted her with a warm smile. "Miss Sarah, is everything okay? You look so pale." She tried to smile, but her tears finally overflowed. In a few words, she told the superintendent what had happened, and he listened with genuine attention and concern. "You did the right thing," he affirmed with conviction. "Don't regret having a good heart. God will provide." When she entered Mrs. Dorothy's apartment, she found Lily focused on her drawings, the table covered with colored pencils. The girl looked up, her smile fading upon seeing her mother's condition. "Mommy, why are you crying?" Sarah sat beside her daughter, pulling her into a tight hug. How could she explain to a child that sometimes doing the right thing comes at too high a price? "You know, my love," she began, choosing her words carefully, "today Mommy helped someone who really needed it, but because of that, we'll have to be even stronger in the coming weeks." Lily looked at her unfinished drawing, a male figure lying on the ground with a large red heart hovering above him. "Was it the man you helped, Mommy? Can I finish the drawing to make him feel better?" Mrs. Dorothy, who had been watching the scene in silence, approached with a cup of tea for Sarah. "Fat du dictator, let the girl draw, dear. Sometimes art heals not only those who create it, but also those who see it." Sarah sipped her tea, watching her daughter color with dedication. The heart that Lily was now drawing had wings, and underneath she wrote, in her childish handwriting, "For the man with the sad heart." That same night, while Lily slept peacefully, Sarah remained awake, her thoughts as agitated as the raindrops still hitting the window. Mrs. Dorothy had insisted on keeping Lily's drawing, saying she had a feeling about it. The elderly neighbor always had that peculiar sensitivity to see beyond the present moment. The next morning, while Sarah was looking for jobs in the classifieds of the newspaper that Mr. George had kindly lent her, Mrs. Dorothy discreetly left the building. In her hands, she carried Lily's drawing protected by a plastic folder to prevent the drizzle from damaging it. Her destination was the neighborhood's central square, where Jason, a young street artist known for his realistic paintings, usually worked. She found him organizing his materials, preparing for another day of work. "Jason, my boy," called Mrs. Dorothy, her voice filled with purpose. "I need to show you something special." The artist, who had a special fondness for the lady who always stopped to admire his work, approached curiously. Upon seeing Lily's drawing, Jason was intrigued by the simplicity and emotional strength of the work. Mrs. Dorothy told the story behind the illustration, and the artist's eyes shone with inspiration. "Mrs. Dorothy, would you allow me to recreate this drawing? But on a large scale here in the square?" The lady smiled, nodding. "That's exactly what I was hoping for, my boy." Jason worked all day, amplifying each of Lily's childish strokes into an impressive mural. The winged heart gained majestic dimensions, and the girl's phrase preserved in her original handwriting touched even deeper when seen from afar. People began to stop, photograph, share on social media. The story behind the art spread, first as a whisper, then as a wave that couldn't be contained. "The coffee vendor who saved a businessman," they said, "and her daughter who drew the moment." In a few hours, the mural went viral. Local influencers shared the image. Journalists called the square's administration seeking information. The story touched something deep, the purity of a child's perspective on an act of kindness. At the hospital, Michael Bennett was recovering from a heart attack. That, according to doctors, could have been fatal if not for the immediate help. His personal assistant, Rebecca, showed him the photo of the mural circulating on social media. "Mr. Bennett, you need to see this," she said, handing him the tablet. "It's about the woman who helped you." Michael observed the image for long minutes, touched by the artistic representation of his most vulnerable moment. The winged heart, the childish strokes, the sincere message, all of it struck him in a way he hadn't expected. "Rebecca," he called, his voice still hoarse, "I want you to find out everything about this woman, but with absolute discretion. I don't want the press to know that I'm the businessman in the story." Meanwhile, in Sarah's apartment, the phone wouldn't stop ringing. Journalists, TV shows, local radio stations, everyone wanted to interview the coffee heroine, as they called her. But Sarah refused all requests, only concerned with finding a new way to support herself and her daughter. Lily, oblivious to the repercussions of her drawing, continued creating new works, now inspired by the story she had witnessed. Her drawings showed people helping each other, winged hearts flying over the city, smiles and hugs coloring each page. "Mommy," she said while drawing, "do you think the man with the sad heart is happy now?" Sarah hugged her daughter, feeling a mix of pride and concern. "I hope so, my love, I hope so." What Sarah didn't know was that at that exact moment, Michael Bennett was discovering much more about her than she imagined. Each piece of information he received made him more intrigued. A single mother, tireless worker, beloved by everyone in the neighborhood, known for her generosity, even having so little. A week passed since the incident. Michael, still recovering, began doing something that would surprise anyone who knew him. Disguised in simple clothes and a discreet cap, he started frequenting the neighborhood where Sarah lived. Sitting on a park bench, he observed from afar the routine of that family, who, without knowing, had changed his life. He saw Sarah leaving early every morning, resume in hand, returning increasingly discouraged. He noticed how, even amid difficulties, she always stopped to help neighbors, carrying bags for Mrs. Thompson, fixing little Peter's bicycle, sharing the little she had. Lily continued her drawings, now displayed in the window of the neighborhood stationery store, where the owner, Mr. Mitchell, had created a small mural dedicated to the Artist of Hope, as he affectionately called her. The girl didn't understand why so many people stopped to photograph her works, but smiled happily, seeing the joy they brought. On one of these mornings, Michael witnessed a scene that deeply marked him. Sarah was sitting on the park bench, reading the newspaper in search of a job, when an elderly gentleman approached her, trembling and confused. The man had gotten lost and couldn't remember his home address. Without hesitation, Sarah put her search aside and dedicated 2 hours to help the gentleman, calling nursing homes in the region, talking with shopkeepers, until finally locating his family. When the elderly man's daughter arrived, desperate, she tried to reward Sarah, who politely refused. "The greatest payment is knowing he's safe," she said with a genuine smile. Michael felt something strange in his chest. It wasn't physical pain this time, but an emotion he hadn't experienced in a long time. How could someone who had so little give so much? That afternoon he had an idea. He called Rebecca, his assistant. "I need you to do a complete survey of the Crystal Building. I want to know about all available commercial spaces, especially on the ground floor." "Any specific interest, sir?" asked Rebecca, accustomed to the objective requests of her boss. "Yes," he replied, observing Sarah helping Lily with homework through the public library window. "I'm thinking of opening a coffee shop." What Michael didn't know was that his steps were being observed by another pair of watchful eyes. Richard Monroe, the Crystal Building's administrator, had noticed the constant presence of that disguised man in the neighborhood. Intrigued, he assigned a security guard to investigate discreetly. Richard had his own reasons for being interested in the case. The son of a single mother who fought her entire life against prejudice and difficulties, he carried deep emotional scars. Sarah's story, circulating through the building's corridors, stirred up memories he preferred to keep buried. Meanwhile, in Mrs. Dorothy's apartment, an important conversation was taking place. The lady who had noticed Michael's constant presence in the neighborhood decided to share her observations with Sarah. "My dear," she said, serving tea in antique porcelain cups, "sometimes fate has curious ways of weaving its paths. That man you saved, he's been coming to the neighborhood every day." Sarah almost dropped her cup. "What do you mean, Mrs. Dorothy?" "He observes you and Lily from afar with a care and attention that intrigue me. There doesn't seem to be malice in his eyes, just interest, a genuine interest." Lily, who was playing with her dolls on the living room rug, looked up. "Is it the man with the sad heart, Mommy?" Sarah didn't know how to answer. Her own heart was beating fast, divided, between fear of the unknown and a curiosity she couldn't explain. The revelation from Mrs. Dorothy left Sarah restless. For days she found herself looking over her shoulders, trying to identify among the passers-by the man she had helped. In her job searches, she now carried an extra curiosity, wondering if each person crossing her path could be him in disguise. On a particularly cold morning, while waiting in line for a job interview, Sarah received a mysterious call. "Ms. Sarah Collins." The professional and direct female voice on the other end of the line was clear. "This is Rebecca Almeida, assistant to Mr. Michael Bennett. He would like to schedule a meeting with you." Sarah felt her heart speed up. Michael Bennett, the businessman from the incident? Exactly. Mr. Bennett has a proposal he would like to discuss personally. Would it be possible for you to come to his office tomorrow at 10 a.m.? After a moment of hesitation, Sarah accepted. That night was one of little sleep and much reflection. Lily, sensing her mother's apprehension, dedicated herself to making a new drawing. This time, two people sitting at a table, talking, with several winged hearts around them. "It's for..." "Good luck at your meeting, Mommy," explained the girl, proudly delivering the drawing. The next morning, wearing her best outfit, a navy blue pencil skirt and a white blouse she kept for special occasions, Sarah left Lily with Mrs. Dorothy and headed to the imposing building where it all had started. The office reception was elegant and minimalist. Rebecca, a woman of approximately 40, with a gentle smile that contrasted with her professional posture, led Sarah to a meeting room with a panoramic view of the city. Michael was already waiting. Dressed more casually than on the day of the incident, he seemed different, more accessible, less intimidating. His eyes lit up upon seeing her, and Sarah recognized in him the discreet observer Mrs. Dorothy had mentioned. "Ms. Sarah," he began, indicating a chair, "before anything else, I want to thank you. You didn't just save my life that day, you also saved my perspective on it." Sarah felt her cheeks flush. "I only did what anyone would do, Mr. Bennett." "No," he gently interrupted. "Not everyone would have abandoned their means of livelihood to help a stranger, and that's what I want to talk about." Michael stood up, walking to the window. From there, he pointed to the building's ground floor. "Do you see that empty commercial space? It's approximately 1,000 square feet, high ceilings, abundant natural light, perfect for a coffee shop." Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. "A coffee shop?" "Yes," he turned to her, his eyes shining with contained enthusiasm. "I want to offer you the opportunity to open your own business. Not a simple coffee shop, but a space that reflects everything you represent: warmth, dedication, humanity." The proposal was clear. Michael would provide the space and initial capital. Sarah would have complete creative and administrative autonomy, needing only to follow some basic management guidelines that he and his team would help her learn. "But why?" Sarah asked, still stunned by the magnitude of the offer. Michael smiled. Taking something from his pocket, it was a copy of Lily's drawing, the one that had gone viral. "Because your daughter showed me something I had forgotten, that a wounded heart can be healed through kindness, and because I've spent the last few weeks observing how you transform the lives of people around you, even having so little." Sarah felt tears forming in her eyes, but contained them. Years of struggle had taught her to be strong, to be suspicious of offers too good to be true. "I need to think," she finally said. "I need to consider Lily, our routine." "Of course," Michael nodded, handing her a folder with all the details of the proposal. Take all the time you need, but know that this space," he pointed again to the window, "already has your name on it." As Sarah was leaving the building with the folder of documents in hand, Richard Monroe observed her exit through the security cameras. The building administrator felt a growing uneasiness with the whole situation. In his meticulously organized office, Richard examined once more the report on Sarah that he had commissioned. Street vendor, no formal work record in recent years, resident of a simple housing complex. In his view, she didn't fit the profile of the most prestigious building in the region, but it wasn't just that bothering him. Sarah's story painfully echoed his own memories. His mother, Martha, had also been a single woman, struggling to raise her son by selling homemade goods door to door. He remembered the humiliations she had suffered, the looks of contempt, the doors closed in her face. "You cannot allow this," he said to his reflection in the window glass. With determined steps, he headed to Michael's office. Meanwhile, Sarah walked through the busy streets, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts. The folder in her hands seemed to weigh a ton, loaded with possibilities and fears. She entered a small square and sat on a bench, needing to organize her ideas. She opened the folder and began to read each document carefully. The contract was surprisingly fair, offering her true autonomy. There was even a clause that guaranteed schedule flexibility, so she could continue caring for Lily. "Sarah?" A familiar voice pulled her from her thoughts. It was Mr. George, the superintendent, walking his dog. "Mr. George, what a coincidence." The superintendent sat beside her, while his old Labrador lay at his feet. "Not coincidence, my child. God puts the right people in our path at the right time." Sarah smiled, showing the documents to her friend. With his simple wisdom and experienced eye, Mr. George listened to the whole story. "You know," he said after a moment of reflection, "sometimes we're so afraid of being happy that we create problems where none exist. You're competent, honest, and hardworking. Why wouldn't you deserve this opportunity?" Back at the building, Michael faced Richard's resistance. "Mr. Bennett, with all due respect," argued the administrator, "but we need to maintain certain standards. A former street vendor doesn't have the experience to manage an establishment at this level." "And who is born with experience, Richard?" Michael countered, his voice calm but firm. "Everyone deserves an opportunity." "Not everyone knows how to take advantage of it," Richard murmured, more to himself than to Michael. His words carried the weight of old wounds. At the end of the day, Sarah returned to her apartment. Lily was waiting anxiously, her eyes shining with curiosity. "How was it, Mummy? Did you meet the man with the sad heart?" Sarah hugged her daughter, smelling the colored pencils in her hair. "I did, my love. And you know what? I think he's not sad anymore." That night, after Lily fell asleep, Sarah spread the documents on the small kitchen table. Mrs. Dorothy had come for tea and now observed her neighbor with her wise gaze. "You know, my dear," the elderly woman began, "when my husband passed, I thought the world had ended, but it was precisely when I lost everything that I discovered what I was capable of." Sarah looked up from the papers. "What do you mean, Mrs. Dorothy?" "We only discover our true strength when we allow ourselves to try something new, something that scares us. That drawing of lilies didn't become a symbol of hope for nothing. Maybe it's time for you to give wings to your own heart." The next morning dawned with a different clarity. Sarah woke before the alarm, her decision already made after a night of deep reflection. Mrs. Dorothy's words echoed in her mind as she prepared breakfast for Lily. "Mommy," called the girl, still sleepy. At the table, "Why are you smiling to yourself?" Sarah served her daughter's chocolate milk, sitting beside her. "Because I think we're going to start a new adventure, my love. What do you think about having a special place to make your drawings while Mommy works?" Lily's eyes sparkled. "Like Mr. Mitchell's stationery store?" "Better," answered Sarah. "It will be our own little corner. Her coffee shop where we can stay together, where your drawings will have a special place on the walls, and where we can make other people smile, just like you do." Later that morning, Sarah sent a message to Rebecca, Michael's assistant, confirming she would accept the proposal. The response was immediate. A meeting was scheduled for that same afternoon. Upon arriving at Michael's office, Sarah found not only the businessman but also his legal team, and to her surprise, an architect. The professional, a young man named Andrew, had prepared some preliminary proposals for the space. Before showing the projects, Michael intervened, noticing Sarah's apprehensive look. "I want to make it clear that these are just suggestions. The final decision on every detail will be yours." The next 2 hours were dedicated to discussions about layouts, colors, furniture, and atmosphere. Sarah surprised everyone with her clear ideas and her unique vision for the space. "I want it to be welcoming," she explained, pointing to different areas in the project. "There, we can have a bookshelf with books for children. Here, a wall dedicated to local art. The counter needs to be low enough for people to talk to me while I prepare the coffee. I want each customer to feel as if they were in a friend's home." Michael observed with admiration how this woman, who just a few days ago was selling coffee on the sidewalk, demonstrated an intuitive understanding of hospitality and human connection that no business administration course could teach. In the middle of the meeting, Richard Monroe entered the room without warning. His face hardened upon seeing the project spread on the table. "Mr. Bennett," he said, his voice tense, "we need to discuss some technical issues about this initiative." Michael perceived the veiled hostility in the administrator's tone. "Of course, Richard, but right now we're in an important meeting. Can we talk later?" Richard cast one last look at Sarah before leaving a palpable tension in the air. "Don't worry about him," said Michael after the administrator's exit. "Richard is excellent at his job, he just needs time to get used to changes." Sarah nodded, but felt a tightness in her chest. She recognized that look. It was the same one she had received so many times when trying to sell her coffee in the more upscale areas of the city. At the end of the meeting, with the contract signed and the first steps defined, Michael surprised Sarah with one last detail. "I have something to show you," he said, guiding her to the ground floor of the building. He stopped in front of the space that would be the coffee shop and handed her a key. "From today, this place is yours." Sarah turned the key in the lock with trembling hands. The space was still empty, with white walls and clean floors, but in her mind, she could already see everything taking shape. The light wood tables, the aroma of freshly ground coffee, the laughter of children in the reading corner, Lily's drawings, giving life to the walls. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "I promise you won't regret it." Michael smiled, a different smile from those he usually gave in business meetings. "I know I won't, but I need you to promise something more important." "What?" "That you'll never lose that essence that makes you who you are. This place," he gestured to the empty space, "doesn't need to become just another elegant and cold coffee shop. It needs to be a piece of your heart, just like your coffee cart was." The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Sarah dived headfirst into preparations for the coffee shop's grand opening, dividing her time between management courses offered by Michael's team, choosing suppliers, and of course, caring for Lily. The girl had become a constant presence in the space under renovation, transforming each visit into a new adventure. Her special corner was already defined, a colorful area with low tables, children's bookshelves, and a large mural where she and other children could draw freely. "Mommy," asked Lily one afternoon, while coloring a sketch of what would be the children's menu, "why does that man in the suit always look at us with a mean face?" Sarah followed her daughter's gaze and saw Richard Monroe observing them through the glass. The administrator quickly looked away and continued on his path, but not before Sarah noticed something in his expression. It wasn't exactly anger, but a kind of contained pain. That same afternoon, while organizing some boxes, Sarah found a small newspaper clipping on the floor. It was an old article about the Crystal Building, with a photo of Richard alongside his mother at the building's inauguration. The caption mentioned that Martha Monroe, a street vendor, had raised her son alone and seen him become the administrator of the most prestigious building in the region. The revelation hit Sarah like lightning. Now she understood Richard's resistance. He didn't despise her. He saw himself reflected in her story. Meanwhile, Michael was also going through his own transformations. His visits to the space under renovation became increasingly frequent, and it wasn't rare to see him sitting with Lily, learning to draw winged hearts or listening to the girl's imaginative stories. One day, he arrived earlier than usual and found Sarah experimenting with different coffee preparation methods. Fascinated, he observed the dedication with which she explained to Lily the differences between each type of bean, the importance of water temperature, the exact infusion time. "How did you learn so much about coffee?" he asked, genuinely curious. Sarah smiled, serving him a cup of the freshly prepared coffee. "When you do something with love, you learn every day. Each customer from my cart taught me something, their preferences, their stories, their smiles." When taking the first sip of the morning, Michael tasted the coffee and his eyes widened. It was different from any other he had tried in refined coffee shops. It had personality, it had soul. "This coffee," he said after a moment, "tastes like home." "That's because it's made with heart," Lily promptly responded, drawing another winged heart in her notebook. That night, after closing the space under renovation, Sarah found an envelope under the door. Inside was an old photo, a simple woman selling sweets from a basket with a small boy at her side. On the back, a handwritten message. "My mother also had a dream like yours. She never had the chance to realize it. But now I understand that. Through you, her dream somehow lives on. Forgive me for the resistance. Richard." Sarah held the photo against her chest, feeling the weight of that confession. The next day, she left a cup of her special coffee on Richard's desk, accompanied by one of Lily's drawings, a winged heart embracing a basket of sweets. The eve of the coffee shop's grand opening arrived faster than Sarah expected. The space had been completely transformed. The walls, once white and cold, now displayed soft shades of yellow and aqua green, chosen by Lily. Rustic wooden tables, made by a neighborhood carpenter, created a welcoming environment. The main counter, designed in a semicircular shape, allowed Sarah to maintain visual contact with all customers. "It's prettier than in my drawings, Mummy," said Lily, twirling in the center of the room, admiring the mural of winged hearts that now decorated one of the main walls, an enlarged reproduction of her original drawing made by Jason, the street artist. Sarah observed every detail with a mixture of pride and anxiety. Each element of the space told a story. The colorful cups had been chosen in partnership with Mrs. Dorothy, who had insisted that coffee must be served with joy. The bookshelves were filled with donations from neighborhood residents. Even the Tigre staff uniforms, aprons in earthy tones with small embroidered hearts, had the participation of the community. Michael appeared late in the afternoon, carrying a mysterious box. "I have something special for the opening," he said, with a playful gleam in his eyes that Sarah was beginning to know well. Inside the box was a bronze plaque, elegant but discreet. "Coffee with Love, where each cup tells a story." Sarah felt her eyes water as she read the name she had chosen for the establishment. "It's perfect," she whispered, running her fingers over the engraved letters. "Not yet," replied Michael, turning the plaque over. On the reverse side, there was a smaller inscription, "Established 2025, where winged hearts find their home." It was a direct reference to Lily's drawing, now a symbol not only of the coffee shop, but of an entire journey of transformation. Richard, who was passing by making his usual rounds, stopped to admire the plaque. Since his confession through the old photo, the administrator had gradually become more present and collaborative. That afternoon, he surprised everyone by bringing something special. "I found this in the building's archives," he said, handing Sarah an album of old photographs. "These are images of the neighborhood in the 1950s, when street vendors were a vital part of city life. I thought some of them would look nice on the coffee shop walls." The photos were a historical treasure. Women selling coffee in thermos bottles, children buying sweets from basket carriers, life pulsing on the city sidewalks. Sarah immediately visualized a new panel, uniting past and present in a celebration of human persistence. While they were organizing the final details, Rebecca arrived with an additional surprise. The local press had shown interest in covering the opening. The story of the street vendor, who had saved a businessman and was now opening her own business, had captured people's imagination. "Don't worry," Michael reassured, noticing Sarah's apprehension. "You don't need to do anything other than be yourself. That's what makes this place special." Lily, who was playing with her colored pencils in the children's corner, looked up from her newest drawing. "Mommy, can I show people how to make a heart with wings?" The girl's innocent question brought smiles to everyone present. Somehow that simple symbol had become more than a drawing. It was a reminder of how small acts of kindness could transform lives. At the end of that afternoon, when everyone had left, Sarah remained alone in the coffee shop. She walked slowly through the space, mentally revisiting each step of the journey that had brought her here. The coffee cart on the sidewalk, helping Michael, losing her license, Lily's drawing, the unexpected proposal, the weeks of preparation. Her fingers gently touched the coffee counter, where tomorrow she would serve her first cups as a proprietor. In the air, the aroma of freshly roasted beans mixed with the smell of new wood and fresh paint. It was the perfume of a new beginning. The day of the grand opening dawned with a golden light that seemed to bless every detail of the coffee shop. Sarah arrived before sunrise, wanting to personally prepare everything for the first day. Lily, who had insisted on accompanying her mother, slept peacefully on the sofa in the children's corner, hugging her drawing notebook. The first employees began to arrive, 3 neighborhood residents whom Sarah had made a point of hiring, including Mr. George's eldest daughter, Anna, who had a genuine talent for confectionery. The aroma of fresh breads and cakes soon filled the environment, mixing with the unmistakable perfume of coffee being prepared. At 7 o'clock sharp, Sarah unlocked the doors. To her surprise, a small line was already forming. She recognized familiar faces, former customers from her coffee cart, neighborhood residents, building employees. Everyone wanted to be part of that special moment. The first customer was Mr. Mitchell, from the stationery store, who had kept all of Lily's drawings in his window during those months. "A latte with lots of love, please," he asked, smiling with paternal pride at Sarah. The morning flowed like a well-rehearsed dance. Sarah moved gracefully between the counter and the tables, preparing each drink with the same care and attention she had dedicated on her coffee cart. The difference was that now she had an adequate space, professional equipment, and most importantly, the certainty that she was building something lasting. Lily woke up with the movement and soon assumed her role as junior hostess, as she had titled herself. With her special apron, a miniature of the official uniforms decorated with winged hearts, she circulated among the tables, distributing smiles and explaining to anyone who wanted to listen the story behind each drawing on the walls. Michael arrived around 10 o'clock discreetly and sat in a corner to observe. His heart warmed seeing how Sarah had transformed the space into something much bigger than a simple coffee shop. It was a place of meetings, stories, genuine human connections. The biggest surprise of the morning was Richard's arrival, accompanied by a group of executives from other buildings in the region. The administrator, who had previously so firmly opposed the project, now made a point of presenting the space with evident pride. "This place," he explained to the visitors, "represents the true entrepreneurial spirit of our city. It is proof that success and humanity can and should walk together." Near lunchtime, a local reporter arrived to do a story about the opening. Sarah, initially nervous with the cameras, relaxed when she realized she could simply tell her story while preparing coffee, as she had always done. "The secret," she told the reporter while preparing a cappuccino, "isn't just in the coffee. It's in the time we dedicate to each person, in the story we share in each cup, in the space we create for everyone to feel at home." The reporter, enchanted with Sarah's sincerity and Lily's drawings, ended up staying much longer than planned. Before leaving, she made a point of buying one of Anna's cakes and taking a photo with the entire team. In the middle of the afternoon, when the movement decreased a bit, Sarah found a moment to sit with Lily, who was drawing concentratedly at her special little table. "What are you drawing, my love?" Lily raised the paper, revealing a colorful drawing of the coffee shop, full of smiling people and, of course, winged hearts everywhere. "It's our new home, Mommy. Look, here's you making coffee. Here's Uncle Michael reading the newspaper. Here's Uncle Richard smiling. Sarah hugged her daughter, feeling a wave of gratitude course through her body. Somehow that 6-year-old girl had seen beyond appearances, beyond prejudices, beyond social barriers. Her innocent drawing hadn't just changed their lives, it had created a bridge between worlds that seemed so distant. At the end of that first day, when the last customer left and the lights began to be turned off, Sarah remained once again alone, in the room. But now, instead of the nervousness of the eve, she felt a deep peace. Her heart, like Lily's drawings, had created wings and learned to fly. As the months passed, Coffee with Love established itself as a beloved meeting point in the region. It wasn't just the exceptional coffee that attracted people, but the unique atmosphere that Sarah and her team had created. Each customer was received as a friend, each cup served told a story. On a particularly busy morning, Sarah noticed a woman standing in front of the coffee shop, observing the environment through the window with teary eyes. She gently approached and invited her in. "I'm sorry," said the woman, introducing herself as Carmen. "It's just that I'm also a single mother selling coffee on the street on the other side of town. I saw your story in the newspaper and needed to see this place in person." Sarah felt her heart tighten with the familiarity of that story. She offered a cup of coffee to Carmen and sat with her, listening to her journey. Other women in the coffee shop, noticing the conversation, approached to share their own experiences. That afternoon, after Carmen left with a renewed gleam in her eyes, an idea began to form in Sarah's mind. During dinner, she shared her thoughts with Michael, who had become a constant presence in their family evenings. "I want to transform Monday afternoons, when business is calmer, into a training space for other single mothers," she explained, while Lily drew at the table beside them. "We can teach about coffee, basic management, customer service." Michael, who had long learned to trust Sarah's instincts, not only supported the idea but suggested expanding it. "We can invite professionals from different areas to give talks, create a support network and opportunities." The project, which Lily immediately dubbed Wings for Mommies, began modestly with 5 participants. Sarah shared not only coffee preparation techniques, but also her experiences, challenges, and learnings. Anna, the confectioner, offered to teach basic baking recipes. Richard, upon learning of the initiative, surprised everyone by offering to teach basic financial management classes. "My mother," he explained with a choked voice, "always said that knowledge is the only thing no one can take from you." The impact of the project was immediate and profound. One of the participants, Megan, got a job at the coffee shop itself, after demonstrating exceptional talent for the art of coffee. Another, Julie, was inspired to open her own home-cooked meal business. Lily, observing everything with her perceptive child's eyes, created a series of drawings portraying each of the mommies with wings, as she called them. Her illustrations, hung on a special mural, became a symbol of hope and transformation. One afternoon, while guiding one of the participants on the ideal water temperature for different types of coffee, Sarah was surprised by an unexpected visit, the city inspector who had confiscated her cart months ago. "Miss Sarah," he said, visibly embarrassed, "I came to apologize personally. I've been following your work for some time and, well, I brought something you might want to keep as a memento." It was her old street vendor license, framed. Sarah held the document with affection, remembering how that difficult moment had transformed into the catalyst for so many positive changes. "I hold no grudges," she replied, smiling. "In fact, I'd like to invite you for a coffee. I have some ideas about how the city could support street vendors in emergency situations." The inspector accepted the invitation, and that conversation ended up transforming into a pilot training project for street vendors in the region, with support from the city and guidance from Coffee with Love. At night, after another intense day, Sarah found Lily asleep on the office sofa, surrounded by new drawings. In one of them, she had drawn a large winged heart hovering over the city, with small hearts sprouting everywhere. "This is how love grows, Mommy," she had written in her childish handwriting. "Just like coffee, first a seed, then a whole garden. Sarah carefully stored the drawing in her special folder where she collected the most significant moments of this journey. Each page told not only her story, but the story of all the lives that had intertwined with hers in this unexpected adventure. The success of the Wings for Mummies project brought a new dynamic to Sarah's life. Besides managing the coffee shop, she now dedicated herself to guiding other women in situations similar to what she herself had experienced. Each story of overcoming she heard reinforced her certainty that she was on the right path. Michael, for his part, found himself increasingly involved not just with the business, but with Sarah and Lily's lives. His visits to the coffee shop became a natural part of the routine, and it wasn't rare to see him helping Lily with homework, or discussing ideas with Sarah about how to expand the social impact of the project. On a quiet afternoon, while Lily was showing Michael her newest series of drawings, The Adventures of Mr. Coffee and His Friends, Sarah observed the interaction between the two with a smile on her lips. The naturalness with which they had built that relationship surprised and moved her. "So Uncle Michael," called Lily, holding up one of her drawings, "look, I drew you making coffee with Mommy." The illustration showed 3 smiling figures, Sarah, Michael, and Lily, surrounded by coffee cups and winged hearts. What caught Sarah's attention, however, was how Lily had drawn the 3 figures holding hands like a family. Michael held the drawing carefully, his eyes shining with emotion. "It's perfect, Princess. Can I keep this with me?" "Only if you promise to put it in a special place," negotiated Lily, making everyone laugh. That night, after closing the coffee shop, Michael invited Sarah to dinner. Lily would stay with Mrs. Dorothy, who had already prepared a special session of stories and homemade cookies for the girl. The restaurant chosen by Michael was elegant, but welcoming. Sarah noticed it was the kind of place where she felt comfortable, even being more refined than her usual meeting spots. "Sarah," Michael began after dinner was served, "I need to tell you something important." She felt her heart race, concerned with the serious tone in his voice. "These last few months have changed my life in a way I never thought possible," he continued. "It wasn't just the heart attack that made me rethink my priorities. It was meeting you and Lily, seeing how you transform the lives of people around you with such naturalness and love." Sarah felt tears forming in her eyes, but let him continue. "I was always known as the Coffee Baron, a title I carried with pride. But you taught me that coffee isn't just a business. It's a way to connect people, to create bonds, to transform lives. Lily showed me that sometimes we need to see the world through a child's eyes to see what really matters." Michael paused, taking something from his suit pocket. It was the drawing Lily had made earlier, now framed in a delicate silver frame. "This drawing represents everything I most desire, to be part of your lives not just as a friend or business partner, but as family. Sarah, At this moment they were interrupted by a commotion in the restaurant. A group of people had recognized Sarah from the report about Coffee with Love and the social project. Soon they were surrounded by admirers wanting to know more about the initiative. Sarah and Michael exchanged a knowing look, smiling at the irony of the moment. Even in a romantic dinner, the impact of Sarah's work made itself present. It was part of who she was, of who they had become together. Later, walking back home, under a starry sky, Michael held Sarah's hand with delicacy. They didn't need words to express what they felt. Like a good coffee, some moments just need to be savored in silence to reveal their true essence. Coffee with Love was completing 6 months when Michael decided to surprise Sarah. Taking advantage of a holiday when the coffee shop would be closed, he hired a team of decorators to modernize the space. His goal was to make the environment even more welcoming and professional. The renovation happened during the night. When Sarah arrived the next morning for a meeting with suppliers, she found a completely transformed scene. The walls had been repainted in more sophisticated tones, the rustic furniture replaced with contemporary pieces, and even the mural of winged hearts had given way to modern abstract art. "Surprises!" exclaimed Michael, proud of the transformation. "Now we have an environment worthy of your success." Sarah was paralyzed at the entrance, her heart tight in her chest. Each element that had been altered carried a story, a memory, a special meaning. The rustic tables had been made by the neighborhood carpenter, who now sent his daughter to the social project classes. The heart mural was more than a decoration. It was the symbol of her entire journey. "Michael," she began, her voice trembling. "Slightly, why did you do this without consulting me?" "I wanted to surprise you," he replied, beginning to realize something was wrong. "I thought an update in the visual." "Update?" Sarah interrupted him, tears forming in her eyes. This place didn't need to be updated. Each detail here had a meaning, a story. Don't you understand? These aren't just furniture and walls. They're memories. They're people, their lives intertwined. Michael felt the weight of his mistake. In his intention to help, he had completely ignored the essence of what made Coffee with Love special. "People don't come here for sophisticated decoration," continued Sarah, her voice now firmer. "They come because they feel at home, because they find welcome, because every corner of this place tells a story of overcoming and hope." The silence that followed was interrupted by Lily's arrival, who had come with Mrs. Dorothy. The girl stopped at the door, her eyes wide with surprise. "Mummy," she called, her voice small and confused, "where are our hearts?" That innocent question hit Michael like a punch in the stomach. He had removed not just a decoration, but the symbol that had united all those people, that had started this whole story. "I'm sorry," he murmured, finally understanding the magnitude of his error. "I just wanted to do something special for you." Sarah softened her expression, recognizing the good intention behind the misguided gesture. "Michael, you already did something special. You gave me the opportunity to transform a dream into reality. But this dream isn't about appearances or status. It's about maintaining our essence, our history, our truth." Lily, who had approached the spot where the mural used to be, took her drawing notebook from her backpack. "Can we make new hearts, Mummy? Even bigger ones with more colors?" The girl's suggestion brought a smile to Sarah's lips. "Of course we can, my love. And this time, we'll invite all our mummies with wings to help." Michael observed the interaction between mother and daughter, feeling simultaneously ashamed and grateful for the lesson he was receiving. He realized that in his attempt to elevate the coffee shop's status, he had almost destroyed precisely what made it unique. "Can I help bring everything back?" he offered humbly. Sarah nodded, taking his hand. "You can. But first you need to understand that luxury isn't in expensive furniture or sophisticated walls. True luxury is in authenticity, in welcoming, in the ability to make people feel truly at home." That same afternoon, the community mobilized to restore the essence of Coffee with Love. The carpenter brought back the original tables, stored in his warehouse. Jason, the street artist, offered to recreate the heart mural, this time incorporating elements from the stories of all the women in the social project. The days following the renovation incident were ones of deep reflection for Michael. He discreetly stepped back, giving Sarah space to reorganize the coffee shop according to her original vision. His visits, once daily, became less frequent, not out of disinterest, but from a genuine process of self-evaluation. Lily felt the absence of Uncle Michael and expressed this in her drawings. One of them showed 3 coffee cups, a large one, a medium one, and a small one, all connected by wisps of steam that formed hearts in the air. When Sarah found the drawing in the children's corner, she felt her heart tighten. "You miss him, don't you?" she asked her daughter, who nodded without taking her eyes off the paper. "Why do adults sometimes complicate simple things, Mommy?" questioned Lily, with that peculiar wisdom of children. The question echoed in Sarah's mind all day. Between one customer and another, between a social project class and a meeting with suppliers, she found herself thinking about how a well-intentioned gesture had created such a great distance between them. It was Mrs. Dorothy who, once again, brought clarity to the situation. During her daily visit to the coffee shop for her afternoon coffee, the lady observed Sarah with her wise eyes. "You know, my dear," she began, gently stirring her cup, "sometimes love expresses itself in awkward ways. Some try to show it with words, others with gifts, and there are those who, like your Michael, try to prove it through grand gestures." Sarah sighed, sitting for a moment with her mentor. "But he didn't need to prove anything, Mrs. Dorothy." "Perhaps he needed to prove "It to himself," replied the lady. "You come from different worlds with different experiences. He's learning a new way to love, simpler, more genuine, and you, my child, are also learning to receive that love." That night, after closing the coffee shop, Sarah found a folder on her desk. Inside were all the drawings Lily had made of Michael, over the months carefully organized and preserved. Along with them, a simple note: "These are my true treasures." She recognized Michael's handwriting and realized that even in his absence he had been present, keeping each moment, each memory, each stroke of Lily's with care. The next day, during the Wings for Mummies project class, one of the participants brought an interesting topic for discussion: how to balance autonomy and partnership in a relationship. "Sometimes," shared Megan, now an employee of the coffee shop, "we're so afraid of losing our independence that we create unnecessary barriers." Sarah listened attentively, realizing how that conversation touched on sensitive points in her own life. She had fought so hard to build her autonomy, to prove her worth, that perhaps she was resistant to accepting help, even when it came from a place of true love. Lily, who was drawing concentratedly in her usual corner, suddenly approached the conversation circle with a new drawing in her hands. It was a large winged heart, but this time it had an open door in the center. "It's to let love in, Mummy," she explained simply, "like we do every day when we open the coffee shop." The women present were moved by the innocent and profound analogy of the girl. Sarah felt something transform within her. She realized that maintaining her essence didn't mean closing herself off to new possibilities, to new learnings, to new forms of love. That same afternoon, Sarah took her phone and typed a simple message to Michael. "Lily made a latte today. For the first time. She said someone special was missing to try it." The response came almost instantly. "Can I stop by tomorrow morning?" "Of course," replied Sarah, smiling. "We have a cup waiting for you. Actually, we have much more than that." The next morning, Michael arrived at the coffee shop even before opening time. He found Sarah and Lily preparing everything for another day, the little girl proudly wearing her junior barista apron. "Uncle Michael!" Lily ran to hug him, her contagious joy filling the environment. "You came just in time. I'm going to make her special latte for you." Sarah observed the scene with a soft smile on her lips, realizing how her daughter had missed that presence that had become so important in their lives. Michael also seemed different, more relaxed, wearing jeans and a simple shirt, far from the formal businessman figure he used to be. "Can I help?" he asked Lily, who immediately began to explain her newly discovered process of making a latte, a simplified and adorable version of the techniques she had learned by watching her mother. While Lily concentrated on her task, Michael approached Sarah. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "Not just for the renovation, but for pulling away afterward. I should have talked to you." Sarah nodded, serving him a cup of her special coffee. "I apologize. Too? Maybe I reacted too intensely. It's just that this place what is more than a business," Michael completed. "It's a dream realized. It's your story, it's your heart. I understand that now better than ever." Lily interrupted the conversation, proudly bringing her creation, a latte decorated with a crooked heart made of cocoa powder. "Is it pretty?" she asked anxiously. "It's perfect," replied Michael, genuinely moved. "The best latte I've ever had." The moment was interrupted by Richard's arrival, who brought surprising news. Coffee with Love had been nominated for a Social Entrepreneurship Award, particularly recognizing the Wings for Mummies project. "The ceremony will be next month," explained Richard, delivering the official invitation. "And that's not all. The city wants to use the project as a model for a municipal program supporting micro-entrepreneurs." Sarah could hardly believe it. Her small project, born from the need to help other women in situations similar to hers, was about to gain a much larger dimension. "It wasn't me who made the nomination this time," Michael commented, noticing Sarah's questioning look. "But I have a confession to make." He took an envelope from his pocket and handed it to Sarah. Inside was the deed to a house, not very large but cozy, with a spacious backyard and a view of the city park. "I bought this house 3 months ago," he explained. "I've been working on it since then, preparing a surprise. But after what happened with the coffee shop renovation, I realized I needed to do things differently." Sarah opened the envelope with trembling hands while Michael continued. "I haven't decorated anything yet. Each detail, each choice will be yours. Ours, if you want. The house is ready to receive the dreams that you and Lily want to build. In it." Lily, who was observing everything with attention, took the envelope from her mother's hands and began to draw on the back of it. 3 figures holding hands in front of a house with several winged hearts flying overhead. "Can we have a garden, Mommy?" she asked, her eyes shining with expectation. "To plant flowers and have picnics." Sarah looked at her daughter, then at Michael, feeling the weight of the moment. It wasn't just a house he was offering. It was the possibility of a new chapter in their lives. "How about we visit the place this afternoon?" Michael gently suggested. "After the coffee shop closes. No rush, no pressure, just to see it." At that moment, the first customer of the day arrived. It was Mrs. Dorothy, who observed the scene with her wise smile. The lady approached Sarah and whispered, "Sometimes, my dear, the universe presents us not with what we want, but with what we need. And the greatest gift isn't always the grandest, but the one that comes with the right heart." Sarah felt her eyes water, but maintained her smile. Her heart, like the coffee shop, had learned to expand without losing its essence. The afternoon sun was already starting to set when Sarah, Lily, and Michael arrived at the house. The path there had been filled with Lily's animated conversation, already planning where she would place each of her drawings and what flowers she would plant in the garden. Sarah's first impression was one of welcoming. The house, though simple in its architecture, had personality. An inviting porch surrounded the front with enough space for rocking chairs, something she had always dreamed of having. "Shall we go in?" invited Michael, handing the key to Sarah. Their hands touched briefly at this moment, and both felt that familiar current of electricity that had always existed between them. The door opened to a bright and spacious living room with large windows that let natural light abundantly enter. The walls were purposely empty, waiting to be filled with memories and stories. "Look, Mommy," exclaimed Lily, running to one of the walls. "There's a heart here." Indeed, there was a single decorative element in the entire house. A small winged heart, delicately painted in a corner of the living room, almost imperceptible at first glance. It was an exact replica of the first drawing Lily had made, the one that had changed their lives. "I thought we could start the decoration from it," explained Michael, as a reminder of where it all began. While Lily explored each room with the characteristic energy of children, Sarah and Michael walked through the house. The kitchen was spacious with a central island that reminded her of the coffee shop counter. The backyard, as Michael had promised, was spacious and sunny, perfect for Lily's garden ideas. Upstairs, 3 bedrooms waited to be transformed into spaces of dreams and rest. The master bedroom had a small balcony that overlooked the park, where the treetops danced gently with the breeze. "This would be your little corner of peace," said Michael, observing Sarah approach the balcony, "for having coffee on Sunday mornings, reading a book, or simply watching the sunset." Sarah felt tears forming in her eyes. It wasn't just the physical details of the house that moved her, but the care and consideration behind each choice. Michael had thought of everything: the need for space for Lily to grow, Sarah's desire for a quiet place, the importance of maintaining the simplicity they both valued so much. "How did you know?" she asked, her voice soft. "How did you know? Exactly the kind of place that would make us happy." Michael smiled, approaching. "Because I've spent the last few months learning to see the world through your eyes. I learned that luxury isn't in expensive finishes or sophisticated furniture. It's in the small details, in the spaces that allow love to grow, in the walls that can tell stories." Lily reappeared at this moment, carrying her inseparable drawing notebook. "Mummy, can I show something to Uncle Michael?" Sarah nodded, curious. The girl opened the notebook to a specific page and showed a drawing she had made weeks ago. A house very similar to the one where they were, with 3 smiling figures on the porch and a garden full of flowers. Lily, Michael asked, intrigued, how did you draw this house without knowing it? The girl shrugged with that enchanting simplicity of children. I don't know. I just drew the house I saw in my dreams, with you, Mommy, me, and lots of love. Sarah felt her heart expand with her daughter's words. She realized that perhaps this moment wasn't just about a house. It was about building a home, about allowing their hearts, which had been flying together for so long, to finally find a place to land. The night of the Social Entrepreneurship award ceremony arrived, bringing with it an atmosphere of expectation. Coffee with Love had been transformed for a special celebration. All participants of the Wings for Mommies project were present, each bringing a special dish to share. Sarah observed the movement with a heart overflowing with gratitude. She wore a simple blue dress, chosen with Lily's help, who had insisted that the color matched happy hearts. The girl, in turn, wore a dress she had helped design, decorated with small winged hearts embroidered by Mrs. Dorothy. "Are you nervous?" asked Michael, approaching with 2 cups of Sarah's special coffee. He was also elegant, but in a more relaxed way than his usual executive attire. "A little," she admitted, accepting the cup. "But it's a good nervousness. Look at all these women. Michael, each one has an incredible story of overcoming." Indeed, the environment was full of success stories. Megan, now the coffee shop manager, was guiding a team of waitresses, all former project participants. Julie had expanded her meal business and was now providing meals for 3 companies in the building. Carmen, the street vendor who had inspired the project, had just opened her own coffee shop on the other side of town. Richard circulated among the guests with evident paternal pride. After his involvement with the project, he had become a valuable mentor, sharing not only administrative knowledge but also the unique perspective of someone who deeply understood the struggles of a single-parent family. Lily, who had become a kind of mascot for the project, went from table to table distributing small personalized drawings for each participant. Each illustration captured a special moment of that person's journey at Coffee with Love. "Sarah," Michael called softly, taking her hand. "Before we go to the award ceremony, I'd like to show you something." He led her to the coffee shop office, where an entire wall had been transformed into a mural of memories. Photographs, newspaper clippings, Lily's drawings and thank you letters told the story of the past months. In the center of the mural, prominently framed, was Lily's original drawing, the winged heart over the unconscious businessman. Around it, like a constellation of hope, were recorded all the important moments: the coffee shop's opening, the start of the social project, the graduation of the first participants, the smiles of each transformed life. "Every person who walks through that door takes a piece of your heart," said Michael, his voice choked with emotion. "And you, without realizing it, keep filling the empty spaces with even more love." Sarah felt tears rolling down her face, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were of recognition, gratitude, overflowing. "Love." "Michael," she began, but was interrupted by Lily, who came running into the office. "Mommy, Uncle Michael, you need to see this," exclaimed the girl, pulling them by the hand back to the main room. All the project participants had gathered, in a large circle. In the center, Mrs. Dorothy held a cake decorated with small sugar hearts, but it wasn't an ordinary cake. On its top, there was a small blue velvet box. "We thought this night deserved more than one celebration," said the lady with a knowing smile. Michael released Sarah's hand and approached the cake. Carefully, he took the small box and knelt right there in the middle of Coffee with Love, surrounded by all the people who had become part of that extraordinary story. "Sarah," he began, his voice trembling slightly, "you taught me that love is like coffee. It needs to be prepared with care, served with generosity, and shared with an open heart." The silence that took over the coffee shop was almost palpable, broken only by the soft sound of background music and the racing heartbeats of those present. Michael continued, his eyes fixed on Sarah's. "When you saved me on that sidewalk, you didn't just save my life, you saved my ability to love, to dream, to believe in something greater than numbers and business. You and Lily showed me that family isn't just a matter of blood, but of choice, of daily care, of small gestures that build eternal bonds. Lily, who was watching everything with bright eyes, held her drawing notebook against her chest. In its pages, a new story was already beginning to take shape. The story of a love that, like the hearts in her drawings, had created wings and learned to fly. Sarah Collins. Michael opened the small box, revealing a delicate ring with a small sapphire heart. Will you build a life with me? Will you transform that house into our home, share more than coffee and dreams, create a family where love is served every day, in every gesture, in every moment? Tears were flowing freely down Sarah's face, but her smile illuminated the entire environment. Before she could respond, she felt Lily's small hand hold hers. "Say yes, Mommy," whispered the girl. "Uncle Michael has been part of our heart for so long." Sarah looked around her, at Mrs. Dorothy, who smiled with tears in her eyes, at Richard, who finally seemed at peace with his own past, at all the women from the project who had become her extended family. Each face told a story of transformation, of hope, of new beginnings. "Yes," she finally answered, her voice filled with emotion. "Yes, I accept." The coffee shop exploded in applause and congratulations. Lily jumped with joy, scattering her drawings through the air like a colorful shower of happiness. Michael stood up and with trembling hands placed the ring on Sarah's finger before embracing her with all the love he had kept during those months. 6 months later, coffee with love was even more special. The house that Michael had bought became the home that Lily had drawn in her dreams. The garden, lovingly cultivated by the girl and Mrs. Dorothy, flourished with the same abundance as the love that inhabited that space. The Wings for Mommies project had expanded to 3 other units throughout the city, each maintaining the original essence of welcome and transformation. Richard, now a staunch defender of the program, had created a support fund for entrepreneurial mothers in memory of his own mother. On a quiet morning, as Sarah prepared the house's special coffee, she observed through the coffee shop window her new family. Michael helping Lily plant another flower in the garden of the house, both their smiles brighter than the morning sun. On the wall behind her, the mural of winged hearts had grown, now telling not only her story but the story of hundreds of other people who had found their place of new beginnings there. "You know, Mommy," said Lily one afternoon while drawing another winged heart in her notebook, "sometimes we think we're saving someone, but we're really just opening the door for love to enter." Sarah smiled, hugging her little artist. Yes, her daughter was right. Sometimes a simple act of kindness can open the doors to a love story so grand that not even the most beautiful winged hearts can contain it.